I am Cassandra Bailey, 29 years old, and a software developer who stumbled into wealth in the most bizarre way possible. One minute I was being belittled by my sister Rachel for needing to borrow a measly $150 for rent, and the next I was staring at billions in my checking account. That banking error changed everything about my life and family relationships overnight. Before I tell you how I accidentally withdrew billions and crashed an entire banking system, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more incredible true stories like mine. Growing up as the middle child in the Bailey household meant living in the shadow of my older sister Rachel. Our parents, Margaret and Thomas Bailey, worked hard to provide for us, but money was always tight. Dad was a high school math teacher, and Mom worked part-time at the local library. They instilled good values in us, but the financial stress in our household was palpable. Rachel excelled at everything she touched. 4 years older than me, she graduated with honors from an Ivy League business school and landed a prestigious job at a financial firm right out of college. By 30, she was making 6 figures as a finance executive, living in a luxury downtown condominium and driving a Mercedes-Benz. She became the golden child, the one who made it in our parents' eyes. Meanwhile, I took a different path. I was always the computer nerd of the family, teaching myself to code when I was 14. I got a computer science degree from a state school and bounced between tech startups and freelance work. My passion was in creating elegant code solutions, not climbing corporate ladders or accumulating wealth. The stark difference in our financial situations became a constant source of tension. Rachel never missed an opportunity to mention her latest bonus or vacation. Family gatherings inevitably turned into showcases of her success, with subtle comparisons to my more modest achievements. My parents never explicitly favored her, but the pride in their eyes when she talked about her promotions was unmistakable. "You could be doing so much more with your skills, Cassandra," Mom would say after Rachel left. "Look at the stability your sister has created for herself." What they didn't understand was that I was doing meaningful work I loved. I helped build apps for nonprofits and worked on accessibility features for people with disabilities. My bank account might not have been impressive, but my portfolio was full of projects that made real differences in people's lives. Still, I was managing okay financially until 3 months ago, when the startup I was working for lost its funding. The entire development team was laid off with just 2 weeks severance. The tech job market had cooled considerably, and suddenly I found myself applying for positions that would have been easy to get a year earlier. My modest emergency fund depleted quickly. Rent in a tech hub city isn't cheap, even for a small one-bedroom apartment. Then my car needed unexpected repairs, and a dental issue required immediate attention. Within weeks, I was facing a terrifying reality. I wouldn't be able to make rent. I had interviews lined up, but none would pay in time. My freelance clients had projects scheduled, but not starting for another month. I needed a temporary bridge, just a small loan to get through the next few weeks. Asking my parents wasn't an option. Dad had recently retired, and they were on a fixed income now. They had always been generous, but I knew they were carefully budgeting to make their retirement savings last. That left Rachel. The thought of asking her for money made my stomach turn. I knew exactly how she would react, but I had no choice. I swallowed my pride and called her on a Tuesday afternoon. "Rachel, hi. Do you have a minute to talk?" I tried to sound casual, but my voice betrayed my nervousness. "I'm between meetings, so make it quick," she replied, the sounds of a busy office in the background. I took a deep breath. "I hate to ask this, but I'm in a tough spot right now. Would it be possible to borrow $150? Just until my next freelance payment comes through. I'll pay you back with interest in 2 weeks, I promise." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds before she let out an exasperated sigh. "Cassandra, seriously? You're 30 years old, and you can't come up with $150? What kind of financial planning have you been doing?" "I'm 29, I corrected her automatically. "And I had an emergency fund. But with the layoff and—" "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she interrupted. "This is why I told you to take that corporate job offer last year. Stability matters, Cassandra. I can't believe we're having this conversation. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. It's just a temporary situation. I have interviews lined up, and you always have something lined up, don't you? And yet here you are, begging for money again. Again? I felt a flash of anger. I have never asked you for money before, not once. Well, it was only a matter of time, she said dismissively. Look, I didn't get where I am by bailing people out. It creates dependency. Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let her hear me cry. Never mind. Forget I asked. Wait, she said sharply. I didn't say no. But if I do this, we need to talk about your financial habits. I want to see your budget, your spending for the last 6 months, and your plan for getting a stable income. I'll need you to sign an agreement for repayment terms, and I want you to attend a financial literacy workshop I can recommend. The humiliation was complete. For $150, she wanted to take over my life and treat me like an irresponsible child. Actually, Rachel, I think I'll figure it out myself. Thanks anyway. This is your problem, Cassandra. Pride over practicality. Let me know when you're ready to be an adult about this. I hung up, my hand shaking with a mixture of anger and shame. How had we become such strangers? The sister who once shared bunk beds with me, who taught me how to ride a bike and braid my hair, now saw me as nothing but a financial failure. I sat on my second-hand couch and allowed myself 5 minutes to cry. Then I wiped my eyes, opened my laptop, and started looking for solutions that didn't involve my sister's conditional charity. The week after Rachel's rejection was one of the most stressful of my life. I threw myself into finding any possible solution to my financial crisis. I posted on freelance job boards offering emergency coding services at discounted rates. I listed electronics, books, and clothes I could part with on various online marketplaces. I even considered driving for a rideshare service, but my car's recent repairs weren't quite finished. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. I stayed up until 3 or 4 in the morning, alternating between sending job applications and working on a small portfolio website for a local photographer who could only pay half up front. The constant worry about eviction hung over everything I did. On Thursday, I had an interview with a promising tech company. The team seemed impressed with my skills and experience, and the technical assessment went smoothly. The salary they mentioned would more than solve my problems, but the hiring manager made it clear that their onboarding process would take at least 3 weeks. "We're really excited about your potential fit here, Cassandra," he said as we wrapped up. "The team was impressed with your portfolio, especially the accessibility work you did for that educational app." I smiled, trying to hide my desperation. "Thank you. I'm really excited about the possibility of joining your team. We'll be in touch early next week with next steps," he promised. Walking out of the building, I felt conflicted. The interview had gone well, but any potential job offer would come too late to help with my immediate crisis. That evening was our monthly family dinner at my parents' house. I considered making an excuse to skip it, but Mom had texted twice, reminding me that she was making my favorite lasagna. Besides, I hadn't told them about my financial situation, and avoiding family dinner would only raise questions I wasn't ready to answer. Rachel arrived in her new BMW, wearing a tailored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She barely acknowledged me when she walked in, busying herself with showing Mom pictures of her recent business trip to Tokyo. During dinner, Dad asked about my job search, and I tried to focus on the positive interview I'd had that day. Before I could finish describing the position, Rachel interrupted. "Speaking of careers, I have some exciting news," she announced, setting down her wine glass. "I've been promoted to senior vice president. It comes with a substantial raise and equity package." My parents erupted in congratulations, while I quietly took another bite of lasagna. "That's not all," Rachel continued, her eyes flickering to me momentarily. "I've put a down payment on a vacation property in Aspen. You'll all have to come visit during ski season." "That's wonderful, honey," Mom beamed. "Isn't that wonderful, Cassandra?" "Very nice," I managed, taking a large sip of water. Rachel wasn't finished. "Actually, I've been meaning to ask you, Cassandra. How's your financial planning coming along? Have you started contributing to a retirement account yet? The question was innocent enough on the surface, but her tone made it clear this was a public extension of our private conversation. I'm focusing on more immediate concerns at the moment, I replied carefully. Rachel shook her head. That's exactly the problem with your generation. Always thinking short term. No wonder so many of you end up needing to borrow money for basic expenses. My face burned as I realized she was deliberately exposing our private conversation to our parents. Rachel, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. What? She asked innocently. I'm just concerned about your future. When you called asking for money the other day, you called your sister for money? Mom interrupted, looking at me with concern. I set down my fork. It was a temporary cash flow issue that I've since resolved. I lied. By putting it on a credit card, I assume, Rachel said with a smirk. That interest rate must be what, 22%? Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. Girls, let's not discuss finances at the dinner table. I'm just trying to help, Rachel insisted. Financial literacy is important. So is basic human decency, I muttered. An awkward silence fell over the table. Mom quickly changed the subject to Dad's new golf clubs, but the damage was done. I felt like a failure in front of my parents, exactly as Rachel had intended. I excused myself early, claiming a headache. Neither of my parents tried very hard to convince me to stay for dessert. As I drove home, tears blurred my vision so badly that I had to pull over. I sat in my car on a random suburban street and sobbed like I hadn't since I was a teenager. When I finally got home, I was emotionally exhausted, but too wired to sleep. I opened my laptop and started working on a side coding project I'd been tinkering with a simple financial tracking app with enhanced security features. The irony wasn't lost on me, but coding had always been my emotional escape. When life became too chaotic, the structured logic of programming offered a sanctuary. What Rachel didn't know, what no one in my family fully understood, was that my hobby coding had given me specialized knowledge in banking system security. A previous contract job had involved patching vulnerabilities in a regional bank's mobile app. I had spent months learning about financial data structures and security protocols. That experience had taught me more about the technical underpinnings of digital banking than most finance executives like my sister would ever understand. As I worked through the night on my app, I had no idea that this specialized knowledge would soon change both our lives in ways neither of us could imagine. Saturday morning arrived with a mounting sense of dread. My rent was due Monday, and despite all my efforts, I was still short. I had managed to sell some electronics and books online, but the payments wouldn't clear in time. The photographer had loved my work but couldn't pay the remaining balance until next Friday. I logged into my online banking account to transfer my meager savings to my checking account. The website seemed unusually slow, with the loading icon spinning for nearly a minute before the page finally appeared. When it did, something looked off. The interface had subtle differences, a slightly different shade of blue in the header, and the account summary was formatted differently than usual. As a developer, I noticed these inconsistencies immediately. Most users would have continued without a second thought, but years of debugging code had trained me to spot when something wasn't rendering correctly. This wasn't a cosmetic glitch. It suggested a deeper issue with the site's core functionality. I opened the browser's developer tools and examined the network requests. What I saw made me sit up straight. The site was making API calls to test endpoints rather than production servers. Somehow, the bank's live website was connecting to their development environment, a separate system used by programmers to test new features without affecting real customer data. This was a serious security vulnerability. Development environments typically have reduced security measures to make testing easier. They might contain dummy accounts with fabricated data or debugging features that should never be accessible to the public. I faced an immediate ethical dilemma. The responsible action would be to report this vulnerability to the bank immediately. But professional curiosity compelled me to understand the extent of the issue first. How much access did this glitch actually provide? Was customer data at risk? I navigated to my account details, noting that my actual balance was correctly displayed. But when I clicked on the transaction history, I received an error message. Access level insufficient. Developer authorization required. This confirmed my suspicion. The website was showing a hybrid of production and development environments. On impulse, I tried a simple hack. In the browser's address bar, I changed the customer parameter in the URL to developer and pressed enter. Instead of an error page, the screen refreshed and displayed an entirely new interface, a back-end system clearly meant for the bank's technical team. A chill ran down my spine as I realized I now had administrative access to the entire banking platform. Tabs across the top of the page showed options for account management, system parameters, testing tools, and database access. This wasn't just a minor glitch, it was a catastrophic security failure. My finger hovered over the mouse, knowing I should close the browser immediately and call the bank's security team. But a notification in the corner of the screen caught my eye. System update in progress. Database Synchronisation. 87% complete. The bank was updating its systems, and somehow the firewall between development and production environments had temporarily fallen. This explained the strange hybrid interface I was seeing. Without thinking through the consequences, I clicked on Account Management and entered my account number in the search field. My information appeared, but with an additional set of parameters I'd never seen before. One option labeled Balance Override had a text field next to it. My heart raced as I stared at that field. In a development environment, this would allow testers to simulate different account balances. But right now, with the systems merged, what would happen if I entered a number? I told myself I was just testing the extent of the vulnerability. I entered $10,000 and clicked Apply. The page refreshed, and to my shock, my account balance updated to show $10,000. I quickly switched back to the standard customer view, and there it was. My checking account showing $10,000 instead of the $46.73 it had contained moments ago. Panic seized me. I had just modified actual bank data. This was illegal, wasn't it? I immediately went back to the developer view, intending to reverse the change, but when I tried to enter my original balance, I received an error. Minimum transaction value, 10E6. The system wouldn't allow changes smaller than $1 million. Some programmer had set that minimum to prevent accidental tiny changes during testing, never imagining that the test environment would merge with the production system. In desperation, I tried a different approach. I entered my account again and looked for a way to reset it. There was a system restore option, but it required authorization codes I didn't have. As I frantically searched for solutions, my finger slipped on the keyboard, accidentally entering 42E9 in the balance field scientific notation for $4.2 billion. Before I could delete it, my laptop froze momentarily, then displayed a success message. Account balance updated. New balance. $4,200,000,000. My blood ran cold as I stared at the screen. I had just accidentally assigned myself billions of dollars. I immediately tried to reverse it, but the system had become unresponsive. A new message appeared. Database sync interrupted. Failover procedures initiated. I shut my laptop, breathing heavily. This couldn't be real. The system would surely detect and reverse such an obvious error. No bank could possibly allow a random customer to give themselves billions through a website glitch. 20 minutes later, after pacing my apartment and contemplating calling the bank to confess, curiosity got the better of me. I reopened my laptop and logged into my account through the mobile app instead of the website. There it was, $4,200,000,000, $4.2 billion. The mobile app showed my balance had been updated less than an hour ago. A system message indicated that online banking might experience intermittent issues due to scheduled maintenance, but otherwise everything appeared normal. I sat staring at my phone for nearly an hour, cycling through disbelief, terror, and wild fantasies. Was this money actually accessible? Would attempting to use it alert the authorities? How long before the bank discovered what had happened? There was only one way to find out. Sunday morning, I woke up after barely sleeping. The reality of what had happened kept cycling through my mind. Had I actually created billions of dollars out of thin air? Or was it just a display error that would disappear when the bank's systems fully updated? I checked my account again. The money was still there, $4,200,000,000. The sheer number of zeros seemed absurd, almost comical. I had more money than most small countries, at least according to my banking app. A plan formed in my mind. I needed to test whether the money was actually accessible without raising immediate alarms. If I tried withdrawing millions, it would certainly trigger security protocols. But what about a small amount? Something that wouldn't seem unusual for a regular account holder? I decided to try withdrawing $500 from an ATM. It was a reasonable sum that wouldn't trigger any automatic fraud detection, but enough to confirm whether the glitch had affected the actual banking system or just the display. The nearest bank branch was a 10-minute drive away. My hands trembled as I parked outside. What I was doing felt dangerous, possibly illegal, though I hadn't intentionally hacked anything. The vulnerability had presented itself to me. I had merely stumbled upon it. The ATM stood in the bank's outer vestibule, accessible with my card even though the branch was closed. I slid my debit card into the machine, entered my PIN, and selected withdrawal. I typed in $500 and held my breath. The machine whirred, and to my astonishment, 25 crisp $20 bills emerged from the slot. A receipt printed, showing a withdrawal of $500 from my checking account, with a remaining balance of $4,199,999,500. I stared at the receipt in disbelief. The money was real, or at least, the banking system believed it was real enough to dispense actual cash. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure someone would hear it. Back in my apartment, I spread the $20 bills across my coffee table, staring at them as if they might disappear. This was real currency, not some digital mistake. The implications were staggering. My laptop beckoned from the kitchen counter. I needed to understand what was happening. A quick search for banking system failures yielded nothing unusual, but when I specifically looked for news about my bank, I found a small notice on their website. We are performing system upgrades over the weekend. Some customers may experience temporary display issues in their account information. We appreciate your patience. They knew something was wrong but didn't yet understand the magnitude. I spent the next several hours researching banking laws and regulations surrounding erroneous deposits. The legal consensus was clear. Money mistakenly deposited into your account isn't yours. Spending it knowingly constitutes theft or fraud. People had gone to prison for much smaller banking errors than this. But my situation wasn't exactly a mistaken deposit. I had unintentionally exploited a system vulnerability during a database update. Did the same legal principles apply? The more I researched, the more I realized I might have stumbled into a legal gray area. Around noon, my phone pinged with a notification. It was an automated message from my bank. Our records indicate unusual activity on your account. Please contact customer service at your earliest convenience. My stomach dropped. Had they discovered the billions? But reading further, the message continued. Scheduled system maintenance may result in temporary display errors. We apologize for any inconvenience. This was a mass message sent to all customers, not targeted at me specifically. The bank was aware something had gone wrong but hadn't yet identified the specific issues. As I contemplated my next steps, a more troubling thought occurred to me. What if I wasn't the only one affected? What if other customers had experienced similar glitches? I returned to my research, now searching for any mentions of unusual bank account balances. On a financial forum, I found a thread started just hours ago. Anyone else seeing weird numbers in their accounts? Several users reported sudden increases in their balances, though nothing approaching billions. The gravity of the situation dawned on me. This wasn't just about my account. The entire banking system might be compromised. My phone rang, startling me. It was an unknown number, but the caller ID displayed First National Bank customer service. I let it go to voicemail, heart racing. The message was generic. This is an automated message from First National Bank. We are conducting routine verification of accounts. Please call our customer service line at your earliest convenience. They were starting to investigate. How long before they traced the anomaly to my specific account? How long before they discovered what I had done? A radical idea formed in my mind. What if I withdrew my actual legitimate savings before they froze my account? Not the billions that wasn't my money, but the $175,000 I had accumulated over years of freelance work and careful saving. It was all documented in my previous statements, a legitimate amount that was rightfully mine. If the bank discovered the glitch, they might freeze my entire account, leaving me without access to any funds, including my legitimate savings. In a worst-case scenario, sorting out this mess could take months. Monday morning, I arrived at the bank branch the moment it opened. I had rehearsed my story carefully. I needed to withdraw my savings because I was making an offer on a small condo, a plausible reason for a large cash withdrawal. The teller, a friendly woman named Janet, looked surprised at the request. "You'd like to withdraw your entire savings? That's $175,000, correct?" I nodded, trying to appear calm. "Yes, I'm purchasing a condo. The seller is offering a discount for a cash transaction." This wasn't entirely implausible in the current real estate market. "I'll need to get the branch manager to approve a withdrawal of this size," she explained, picking up the phone. Minutes later, a man in a charcoal suit approached. "Miss Bailey? I'm Harold Winters, the branch manager. I understand you wish to make a substantial withdrawal today." "Yes," I confirmed, maintaining eye contact despite my racing heart. "I'm buying a property." He frowned slightly. "I noticed there was some unusual activity on your account this weekend. Our systems were undergoing maintenance." My mouth went dry. "Yes, I received a notification about that. Is there a problem?" He studied his computer screen. "No, your savings account appears normal. It's just that we're seeing some irregularities in the system following the update. For security purposes, we're verifying larger transactions personally." After checking my ID and asking me to confirm several personal details, he finally nodded. "Everything seems in order, Miss Bailey. We'll process your withdrawal. Would you prefer a cashier's check or cash?" "Cash, please," I replied, knowing that a check could be stopped if issues arose later. The transaction took nearly an hour to complete. I signed multiple forms, including a currency transaction report required for withdrawals over $10,000. Finally, Harold returned with a security officer and a lockbox containing my money in various denominations. "Please be careful with this amount of cash, Miss Bailey," he advised as I placed the money in the secure bag I had brought. "Would you like a security escort to your car?" I declined politely, thanked them, and walked out with $175,000, my actual legitimate savings, clutched tightly against my chest. Driving home, I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting police cars to appear. But nothing happened. I had successfully withdrawn my own money before the inevitable freeze occurred. As I pulled into my apartment parking lot, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Major banking system issues reported nationwide. First National Bank temporarily halts all transactions. It had begun. The bank had discovered the magnitude of the problem and initiated emergency protocols. I sat in my car, staring at the notification, realizing that I might have just made the biggest mistake of my life, or the smartest decision I could have made, depending on how this all played out. Either way, there was no going back now. The bank had frozen, and I was holding $175,000 in cash while my account still showed billions. The question was, what would happen next? By Monday evening, the banking crisis had made national news. Headlines blared across all major networks. Unprecedented banking system. Failure affects millions. First, National Bank suspends all transactions amid critical system error. Financial markets react to banking freeze. I watched the coverage with growing anxiety, searching for any indication that authorities had identified the source of the problem. So far, the bank's official statement was vague. "We are experiencing a significant technical issue affecting our core banking systems." As a precautionary measure, all transactions have been temporarily suspended while we investigate and resolve the matter. Financial experts on TV speculated about possible causes: a coordinated cyber attack, a catastrophic software update gone wrong, or internal sabotage. None mentioned the possibility of a customer accidentally assigning themselves billions through a security vulnerability. My phone had been ringing constantly, concerned friends asking if I was affected, recruiters following up on job applications, and most frequently, the bank's customer service line. I let all calls go to voicemail, too afraid to speak to anyone directly. Tuesday morning, the severity of the situation became clearer. The bank announced that the anomaly involved approximately $4.2 billion in unaccounted funds, the exact amount that had appeared in my account. They assured customers that personal data remained secure and that legitimate accounts would be restored once the issue was resolved. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of cash from my withdrawal and a growing sense of doom. They knew the amount. How long before they traced it back to me? My answer came at 2:17 p.m. when a sharp knock sounded at my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw a woman in a dark suit, standing next to a man with a briefcase. They didn't look like police officers, but their demeanor screamed authority. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. "Cassandra Bailey?" the woman asked, her expression unreadable. I nodded. "I'm Diana Fletcher, lead investigator with First National Bank's Security Division. This is my colleague, James Morrison. We'd like to ask you some questions about your recent banking activities. May we come in?" My heart pounded as I stepped aside to let them enter. The cash from my withdrawal was hidden in my bedroom closet, but I felt as if they could somehow sense its presence. "Miss Bailey," Diana began once we were seated in my living room, "our records indicate that you made a substantial withdrawal yesterday morning, just before our systems were locked down." "Yes," I admitted. There was no point denying something thoroughly documented. "I withdrew my savings. I'm in the process of purchasing property." James opened his briefcase and removed a laptop. "That's interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Just hours before one of the largest banking system failures in recent history?" "I had no way of knowing the system would fail," I replied carefully. "I've been planning this purchase for weeks." Diana studied me intently. "Miss Bailey, are you aware that our bank experienced a significant security incident during system maintenance this weekend?" "I received a notification about scheduled maintenance," I said, which was technically true. "According to our records, there was unusual activity associated with your online banking account during that maintenance period," she continued. "Specifically, at 10:37 a.m. on Saturday, someone accessed administrative functions of our system through your user profile." My mouth went dry. I logged in on Saturday to check my balance, but I didn't access any administrative functions. I wouldn't even know how to do that. "And yet," James interjected, turning his laptop toward me, "our logs show that your account was the origin point of a $4.2 billion anomaly that has affected our entire banking system and forced us to suspend operations nationwide." Seeing the evidence in black and white made my stomach churn. The screen showed a log entry with my username and the exact time I had accidentally entered the 4.2E9 value. "I'm a software developer," I said, deciding that partial honesty was my best defense. When I logged in Saturday, I noticed the website looked different. There were interface inconsistencies that, professionally speaking, concerned me. I explored the site to understand if there was a security issue. Diana's expression remained neutral. "And did you find one?" "Yes," I admitted. "Your website was exposing development environment functions to regular users. I was able to access back-end features that should have been restricted." "And did you manipulate any data using those features?" James asked pointedly. Here was the crucial moment. A direct lie would be easily disproven by their logs. "I tested the extent of the vulnerability," I said carefully. "I wanted to understand how serious it was. Any changes I made would have been part of that investigation." "Miss Bailey," Diana said, leaning forward, "our system logs show that your account balance was changed to $4.2 billion during your investigation." That change triggered a cascade failure in our database synchronization process, affecting millions of customers and potentially costing the bank billions in damages. The gravity of the situation hit me full force. "I never intended to cause any harm," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "When I realized there was a problem, I panicked. I didn't know how to reverse it. Yet you had the presence of mind to withdraw your savings before the system froze," James noted coldly. "I was afraid my legitimate funds would be inaccessible during the investigation," I explained. "Everything I withdrew is documented in my previous statements. It's money I earned and saved over years." Diana exchanged a glance with James before continuing. "Miss Bailey, we're not here to arrest you. Not yet, anyway. We need to understand exactly what happened so we can fix it. As someone with technical expertise who witnessed the vulnerability firsthand, you could be valuable to our recovery efforts." Their approach surprised me. I had expected handcuffs, not a quasi-job offer. "The bank's position," she continued, "will depend largely on your cooperation and whether we determine there was criminal intent. Right now, this could be classified as an accidental discovery of a vulnerability or as a deliberate attack on our systems." "It was absolutely accidental," I insisted. "I never intended to create this problem or to benefit from it." James typed notes on his laptop. "You'll understand if we find the timing of your cash withdrawal suspicious. I can provide documentation of my real estate interests," I offered, relieved that I had actually been browsing property listings recently. "And I'm happy to help however I can with resolving the system issues." Diana handed me her business card. "We'll need you to come to our offices tomorrow morning to provide a complete statement and technical assistance. In the meantime, do not leave town. Do not attempt to access your banking accounts, and do not discuss this situation with anyone." After they left, I collapsed onto my couch, overwhelmed by the implications. They hadn't arrested me, but they clearly considered me responsible for the crisis. My technical explanation had bought me some time, but for how long? My phone rang again. It was Rachel. This was the 5th time she'd called today. "Against my better judgment," I answered. "Finally!" she exclaimed. "Why haven't you been picking up? Have you seen the news? The entire banking system is in chaos." "I've been busy," I replied vaguely. "Well, this is a disaster," she continued. "Our firm handles investments through First National. Clients are panicking, the market is fluctuating wildly, and my boss is talking about potential layoffs if this drags on." A chill ran down my spine as I realized the far-reaching consequences of my mistake. "That sounds serious," I managed. "It's more than serious, Cassandra. It's catastrophic. The rumor at work is that someone hacked into the system during a routine update and somehow created billions in fake money. Can you imagine?" I couldn't respond. "Cassandra?" Rachel's voice sharpened. "You're in tech. Do you know anything about this? You've been acting strange lately." "What?" "No, of course not," I replied too quickly. There was a long pause before Rachel spoke again, her voice suddenly cold. "2 banking investigators came to our office today asking questions about unusual activity during the system update. They mentioned they were following leads related to a software developer with knowledge of banking security systems." My blood froze. "Rachel, tell me you had nothing to do with this," she demanded. "It's complicated," I whispered. "Oh my God," she breathed. "It was you? Do you have any idea what you've done? This could ruin me. My reputation, my career, everything I've worked for." "I didn't do it on purpose," I protested. "It was an accident, a vulnerability in their system." "Save it," she snapped. "The bank is looking for someone to blame, and I'm not going down with you. If they come asking me questions again, I won't lie for you." The line went dead. My own sister was ready to throw me to the wolves to save herself. And the worst part was, I couldn't entirely blame her. My mistake had potentially put her livelihood at risk, along with countless others. I sat in my darkened apartment as night fell, contemplating the chaos I had unwittingly unleashed. Tomorrow, I would face the bank's investigation team, with no guarantee they would believe my story about an accident. The $175,000 cash hidden in my closet now felt like damning evidence rather than financial security. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear. My life would never be the same again. Wednesday morning arrived with a fresh wave of anxiety. My appointment with the bank investigators was at 10 a.m., and I had barely slept. The news reported that First National Bank was still in emergency recovery mode, with only limited transactions being processed for critical needs. I was preparing to leave when my doorbell rang. Peering through the peephole, I was stunned to see Rachel standing there, impeccably dressed in a charcoal business suit, her expression tense. I hesitated before opening the door, unsure if she had come to support me or condemn me further. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes darted around my living space, taking in the modest furnishings with a familiar hint of judgment. "I'm about to leave for a meeting with the bank investigators," I explained, checking my watch. "So if this is another lecture, do you have any idea what's happening at my firm right now?" she interrupted, pacing across my small living room. "Emergency meetings all night, clients threatening to pull their investments, the SEC launching an inquiry. My entire department is being scrutinized because we handle First National accounts." The genuine fear in her voice caught me off guard. Rachel had always projected unshakable confidence, but now she seemed truly rattled. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I never meant for any of this to happen." She stopped pacing and faced me directly. "What exactly did happen, Cassandra? I need to hear it from you before they start asking me more questions." I took a deep breath and told her everything. The strange interface glitches, the accidental access to administrative functions, the typing error that created billions, and my panicked withdrawal of my legitimate savings. As I spoke, Rachel's expression shifted from angry to incredulous. "You're telling me this entire banking crisis, the one that's dominating every news headline and threatening the financial stability of thousands of people, was caused by a typo?" she finally asked. "Essentially, yes. Their system should never have allowed a regular user access to those functions. It was a catastrophic security failure on their part." Rachel sank onto my couch, shaking her head. "And the money? The $4.2 billion? It was never real," I explained. "It was a digital error that their system treated as legitimate because of the failed database synchronization. But you still withdrew your actual savings," she pointed out. "That was deliberate." I felt a flash of defensiveness. "That money is legitimately mine. I earned it. I was afraid they would freeze everything during the investigation." "Which they did," Rachel confirmed. "And now they'll use that withdrawal as evidence that you were trying to exploit the situation." We sat in tense silence for a moment before Rachel spoke again, her voice suddenly cold. "I need you to go to that meeting today and take full responsibility. Tell them it was entirely your fault. Make it clear that you acted alone and that no one else had any knowledge of your actions." "What?" I stared at her in disbelief. "Why would I do that when it was their security failure that allowed this to happen?" "Because my career is on the line," she snapped. "Because several of my clients had significant investments with First National, and now they're threatening to hold our firm accountable for their losses." "So you want me to be the scapegoat to save your job?" I asked incredulously. "I want you to own up to the mess you created." Rachel stood up, her composure cracking. "For once in your life, Cassandra, face the consequences of your decisions." My decisions? I felt years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Like my decision to call you for help when I needed $150? The help you refused while lecturing me about financial responsibility? If you had just helped me when I asked, I might never have been checking my account so desperately that day. Rachel flinched as if I'd slapped her. "Are you seriously trying to blame me for this? That's rich, even for you." "I'm not blaming you for the bank error," I clarified. "I'm pointing out the irony that all your financial success and supposed wisdom didn't prevent this disaster. In fact, your refusal to help with a small loan indirectly contributed to it." "A small loan?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "Do you know how many small loans I've given to friends and family over the years? Loans that were never repaid? I worked hard for my success, Cassandra. I made sacrifices. I didn't want to enable your poor financial habits. Poor financial habits? I echoed. I had been laid off. I had a temporary cash flow problem, not a spending addiction. Rachel paced again, running her hand through her perfectly styled hair. Look, none of that matters now. What matters is how we handle this going forward. We? I raised an eyebrow. Suddenly it's we when you need something from me? She stopped abruptly, her expression shifting. For the first time, I saw something unexpected in my sister's eyes: vulnerability. I need your help, Cassandra, she admitted quietly. The truth is, I'm in trouble too. What do you mean? Rachel sank back onto the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. All that talk about promotions and vacation properties, it's not entirely accurate. You've been lying about your success? I asked, genuinely shocked. Not lying, exaggerating. The firm has been struggling since the market downturn last year. I did get a promotion, but it came with impossible performance targets and no real raise. The Aspen property is a timeshare, not a second home. She laughed humorlessly. I'm leveraged to the hilt, trying to maintain the appearance of success. I stared at my sister in disbelief. All this time, I had been measuring my modest life against a carefully constructed illusion. Why? I finally asked. Why keep up this pretense, especially with family? Because it's all I have, Rachel's voice cracked. Do you think I enjoy working 80-hour weeks and sacrificing everything for a career that could collapse at any moment? But I've invested too much to stop now. I'm trapped by my own success story. The revelation shifted something fundamental between us. For years, I had seen Rachel as my financially superior, emotionally detached sister. Now I recognize the fear and insecurity beneath the polished surface. I don't want you to take the blame, I said finally. But I will go to this meeting and tell the truth, the complete truth. And I'd like you to come with me. Rachel looked alarmed. Why would I do that? Because you work in finance. You understand banking systems and regulations in ways I don't. And because we're sisters, and for once, maybe we can actually help each other. She hesitated, clearly calculating the professional risks. What exactly would you expect me to do? Just help me navigate the conversation. Help me explain what happened in terms they'll understand. Your expertise could make a difference in how they interpret my actions. Rachel was quiet for a long moment before nodding slowly. Okay, but I need you to understand something, Cassandra. If this goes badly, I could lose everything. So could I reminded her. That's why we need each other. As we prepared to leave for the bank's headquarters, I realized this crisis had created an unexpected opportunity. A chance to rebuild a relationship that had fractured under the weight of financial comparisons and perceived failures. Whether we would emerge stronger or completely estranged depended largely on what happened in the next few hours. Before we go, Rachel said, pausing at the door, is there anything else I should know? Anything you haven't told me that might come up in this meeting? I thought about the $175,000 cash hidden in my bedroom closet. Just one thing, I admitted, and you're not going to like it. The corporate headquarters of First National Bank occupied an imposing glass tower in the financial district. Rachel and I sat silently in her BMW in the parking garage, both mentally preparing for what lay ahead. Remember, she said as we walked toward the elevator, let me do most of the talking at first. Banking regulations are complex, and how we frame this will be crucial. I nodded, grateful for her expertise despite the lingering tension between us. The revelation about my cash withdrawal had initially sparked another argument, but Rachel had ultimately conceded that returning the money voluntarily would support my claim of innocence. The security desk directed us to the executive floor, where Diana Fletcher was waiting. Her expression registered surprise at seeing Rachel. Miss Bailey, she greeted me formally. I wasn't aware you'd be bringing someone. This is my sister, Rachel Bailey, I explained. She works in finance and is here to help me provide a complete and accurate account of what happened. Diana's eyes narrowed slightly. I see. Well, we have several members of our team assembled, including legal counsel and IT security. This way, please. She led us to a conference room where 5 people waited around a polished table. I recognized James Morrison from yesterday, but the others were strangers, stern-faced executives in expensive suits. At the head of the table sat an older man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. "Miss Bailey, I'm Robert Chandler, Chief Operating Officer of First National Bank," he introduced himself. "Given the unprecedented nature of this situation, I'm personally overseeing this investigation." My heart sank. This was far more serious than I had anticipated. "Thank you for coming in," he continued. "I understand you have information about the system anomaly that has affected our operations." Rachel stepped forward. "Before my sister provides her statement, I'd like to clarify a few points. I'm Rachel Bailey, Senior Vice President at Meridian Financial Advisors. I have extensive experience with banking regulations and financial systems security." I watched with admiration as Rachel seamlessly established her credibility, creating a more balanced power dynamic in the room. The executives seemed to sit up straighter, recognizing they were dealing with a financial insider. "My sister discovered a critical vulnerability in your systems during routine maintenance," Rachel continued. "While exploring that vulnerability, she inadvertently triggered the anomaly you're investigating. She's here today to fully disclose what happened and assist in resolving the situation." Robert Chandler frowned. "Miss Bailey the Elder. Miss Bailey, while we appreciate your sister's willingness to come forward, this remains an extremely serious matter. Our initial investigation suggests a deliberate manipulation of our banking systems, resulting in billions of dollars of artificial funds." I took a deep breath and spoke directly. "Mr. Chandler, I'm a software developer with experience in financial security systems. What happened on Saturday was the result of a catastrophic security failure in your database synchronization process. I discovered this vulnerability accidentally and was exploring its extent when I triggered the cascading error. Over the next hour, I provided a detailed technical explanation of exactly what had happened, how the development and production environments had merged, how the administrative functions became accessible, and how my accidental input had created the billions in artificial funds. The bank's IT security chief, a woman named Olivia Chen, interrupted frequently with technical questions. I answered each one truthfully and completely, occasionally using the conference room's whiteboard to diagram the technical processes involved. "This aligns with our server logs," she finally admitted, turning to Robert Chandler. "The vulnerability Miss Bailey describes matches our internal findings. During the database migration, our development environment was briefly exposed to production traffic." A collective tension seemed to ease in the room. The narrative was shifting from deliberate attack to accidental discovery. "That still doesn't explain why you withdrew $175,000 immediately before our systems froze," James Morrison pointed out, his suspicion evident. Rachel interjected smoothly. "My sister was concerned that her legitimate funds would be inaccessible during your investigation. She has brought that money with her today to demonstrate good faith." She gestured to the secure bag I had placed beside my chair. Robert Chandler's eyebrows rose. "You brought $175,000 in cash to this meeting?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Every dollar I withdrew is documented in my account history prior to the incident. It's money I earned and saved over years. I'm returning it voluntarily to demonstrate that I never intended to benefit from this situation." Diana Fletcher exchanged glances with the bank's legal counsel. "That's an unexpected development." "I want to be completely transparent," I continued. "I made a mistake by exploring the vulnerability without reporting it immediately. I panicked when I saw what had happened, and withdrawing my savings was a reactive decision I now regret. But I never intended to cause harm or defraud the bank." The mood in the room shifted subtly. What had begun as an interrogation was evolving into a collaborative problem-solving session. Robert Chandler leaned forward. "Miss Bailey, given your technical understanding of what happened, would you be willing to work with our IT team to fully document the vulnerability and help ensure it can never happen again?" "Absolutely," I agreed immediately. "I'd be happy to provide any assistance I can." The bank's legal counsel, a stern woman named Patricia Grant, cleared her throat. "There's still the matter of potential legal consequences. What occurred could be interpreted as unauthorized access to financial systems. Rachel shifted into full professional mode. My sister discovered a vulnerability that was essentially an open door left unlocked during system maintenance. She didn't break in. She walked through an entrance your bank left unsecured. Furthermore, she's here voluntarily, returning funds and offering assistance. This demonstrates clear absence of criminal intent. Additionally, I added, I've prepared a comprehensive technical report detailing the exact sequence of events and identifying several other potential vulnerabilities in your system architecture. I removed a folder from my bag and slid it across the table. This information could save your bank from similar or potentially worse incidents in the future. The executives conferred quietly among themselves before Robert Chandler spoke again. Miss Bailey, your sister makes compelling points. While we cannot simply dismiss what happened, your cooperation and technical expertise are valuable to us. I propose the following resolution. You will work with our IT security team as a consultant to fully document this incident and help strengthen our systems against similar vulnerabilities. In exchange, we will classify this as an ethical discovery rather than an unauthorized intrusion, Diana added. We would also require a non-disclosure agreement regarding all aspects of this incident. And my sister's banking relationship? Rachel asked pointedly. Will her accounts be reinstated without penalty? Robert Chandler nodded. Once we've processed the returned funds and completed our documentation, yes. We'll also provide a formal letter acknowledging her assistance in identifying critical security vulnerabilities. One more thing, Rachel added. My sister should be compensated for her technical expertise and the legitimate discovery of this vulnerability. Many banks offer substantial bug bounties for exactly this type of security finding. I shot Rachel a surprised look. This hadn't been part of our discussion. Patricia Grant frowned. Given the circumstances, Rachel interrupted smoothly. My sister discovered a vulnerability that could have been exploited maliciously by someone with less integrity. The incident has already occurred. The question now is whether you recognize and reward her expertise in helping to resolve it. Robert Chandler studied us both for a long moment before a faint smile crossed his face. Your sister advocates impressively for you, Miss Bailey. We would be willing to discuss an appropriate consulting fee for your assistance, though I must emphasize that confidentiality would be absolute. 2 hours later, Rachel and I walked out of the bank building with a preliminary agreement. I would work with their security team for the next month, documenting the vulnerability and helping strengthen their systems. In exchange, I would receive a substantial consulting fee, and the entire incident would be classified as an ethical security discovery rather than a criminal act. As we reached Rachel's car, the tension that had been building for days finally broke. I leaned against the passenger door and began to laugh, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and lingering disbelief at everything that had happened. What's so funny? Rachel asked, though a smile was tugging at her own lips. Just thinking about how this all started with me needing to borrow $150, I replied, and now I'm being paid a 6-figure consulting fee by one of the largest banks in the country. Rachel's smile faded slightly. I should have helped you when you asked. I'm sorry, Cassandra. I was protecting my own image more than I was considering your actual needs. And I shouldn't have been so quick to judge your success, I admitted. We've both been keeping up appearances in different ways. As we drove away from the bank, something fundamental had shifted between us. The financial disparity that had defined our relationship for years had suddenly become irrelevant. For the first time in our adult lives, we were meeting as equals, each with our own strengths and vulnerabilities, finally visible to one another. 2 weeks later, our parents hosted another family dinner. This time, when they asked about our work, Rachel spoke honestly about the challenges at her firm. And when Mom inquired about my job search, I shared the news about my consulting work with the bank, which had already led to offers from several financial institutions seeking to strengthen their security systems. I always knew you were both so capable, Mom said, beaming with genuine pride that, for once, wasn't directed solely at Rachel's achievements. Dad raised his glass in a toast. To my daughters, different paths, equal success. Rachel and I exchanged a knowing glance across the table. The measurement of success had changed for both of us, becoming less about account balances and more about authenticity and mutual respect. It had taken a banking crisis of biblical proportions to get us here, but perhaps that was what we needed all along. 6 months have passed since the banking incident that turned my life upside down. Fall has given way to winter, and the world outside my new apartment window is dusted with snow. So much has changed that sometimes I have to remind myself how it all started with a desperate need for $150 and an accidental billion-dollar error. The consulting work with First National Bank extended beyond the initial month we had agreed upon. Their security team discovered that my insights into their systems were invaluable, and they offered me a permanent position as a senior security architect with a salary that would have seemed impossible to me a year ago. I turned it down. Instead, I launched my own cybersecurity consultancy, focusing on financial institutions. The incident, though confidential in its specifics, had created enough industry buzz about vulnerabilities in banking systems that my expertise became highly sought after. I now work with 5 major banks and several financial technology startups, helping them identify and address security weaknesses before they become catastrophic failures. My new apartment is in a modern building downtown. Nothing extravagant, but comfortable and walking distance to my favorite coffee shop. The financial security I now enjoy hasn't fundamentally changed who I am or what I value, but it has eliminated the constant stress that used to shadow my days. I still drive the same car, though it's fully repaired now and runs perfectly. The most significant change hasn't been financial, but relational. Rachel and I meet for dinner every Thursday evening, alternating between our apartments. These dinners have become a sacred space for honest conversation, something we never managed to create during all our previous years of comparative success and failure. Last Thursday, it was my turn to host. I prepared a simple pasta dish, nothing fancy, but Rachel has come to appreciate my cooking for what it is, rather than comparing it to the expensive restaurants she used to frequent. "I've been thinking about making a career change," she confessed over wine after dinner. "The hours at the firm are killing me, and after everything that happened, I'm questioning whether it's worth it." "What would you do instead?" I asked, genuinely curious. Rachel's identity had been so intertwined with her financial career that I couldn't imagine her doing anything else. "I've been talking with a nonprofit that provides financial literacy education in underserved communities," she replied, a hint of excitement in her voice. "They need someone who understands complex financial systems but can translate that knowledge for everyday people." "That sounds perfect for you," I said sincerely. "You've always been good at explaining complicated concepts." She smiled, acknowledging the compliment. "It would mean a significant pay cut, but after seeing how you prioritize meaningful work over maximum income, I'm rethinking my own priorities." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. After years of Rachel lecturing me about financial responsibility, I was now the example she looked to for career satisfaction and work-life balance. "Speaking of financial literacy," Rachel continued, "I wanted to ask your advice about my investment portfolio. With the market volatility lately, I'm considering reallocating some assets." "My advice?" I laughed. "That's a first." "Well, you did manage to crash an entire banking system with a single keystroke," she teased. "I figure that gives you some financial credibility." Our relationship has evolved into something neither of us could have predicted: a genuine friendship based on mutual respect and complementary strengths. Rachel still understands traditional finance better than I ever will, but she now values my technical perspective and ethical approach to money. My parents have noticed the change in our dynamic. During their last visit, Dad pulled me aside and said, "Whatever happened between you and your sister, I'm grateful for it. It's like you both finally see each other clearly." The banking incident taught me profound lessons about the nature of wealth and security. Money matters, I won't pretend it doesn't, but its value lies in the freedom it provides, not the status it confers. True security comes from knowing your own capabilities and having relationships that support rather than judge you. I've also gained a deeper understanding of integrity in moments of unexpected opportunity. When faced with billions of dollars that appeared from nowhere, My immediate impulse wasn't to take advantage, but to understand what had gone wrong. That instinct to seek truth rather than exploit errors has become the foundation of my professional reputation. Last week, Rachel called me in a panic. Her firm was conducting an internal audit, and she needed help understanding some technical aspects of their security protocols. "I don't want to be caught off guard if they ask me detailed questions," she explained. "Can you walk me through how these systems typically work?" 5 years ago, Rachel would never have admitted such vulnerability or sought my expertise. Now, she recognizes that our different knowledge bases aren't hierarchical but complementary, each valuable in its own context. As we approach the 1 year anniversary of the banking incident, I find myself reflecting on how differently things might have turned out. If Rachel had simply loaned me the $150 I needed that day, I might never have logged into my account during that critical system update. The vulnerability might have gone undiscovered until someone with malicious intent found it. Sometimes the most difficult moments in our lives, the rejections, the struggles, the apparent failures, are actually redirecting us towards something better than we could have imagined. My financial crisis led to professional success beyond my expectations. Rachel's carefully constructed image of perfection crumbling led to greater authenticity and freedom. The sisters who once measured themselves against each other's bank accounts now measure growth in terms of honesty, purpose, and mutual support. The truest wealth, we've both discovered, isn't counted in dollars, but in relationships strong enough to withstand both crisis and success. I still have the news article framed on my wall. Major banking system recovers after unprecedented technical failure. It serves as a daily reminder that our greatest vulnerabilities, whether in computer systems or human relationships, often become our greatest opportunities for transformation when exposed to the light. What would you do if you suddenly found billions in your account? Would you report it immediately, explore it curiously as I did, or be tempted to use it? Life's most revealing moments often come unexpectedly, testing not just our ethics, but our understanding of what truly constitutes wealth and security. If you've enjoyed this story, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more true life experiences, and share in the comments how you would handle suddenly having access to billions. Thank you for watching, and remember that sometimes our biggest financial mistakes lead to our most valuable life lessons.